Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the sixth Pothohar Association online lecture. And so today the lecture is on, the title is Is Feminism Anti-Men? And our speaker today is Dr. Ishmeet Kaur Chaudhry, and she teaches at the Center for English Studies at the Central University of Gujarat. She was recognized as an inspired teacher for the President of India in residence program at Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi in June 2015. She works on areas related to literature of marginal communities, social movements, and studies of violence and trauma. Her recent work has been on violence studies, engaging with women and violence, and also the 1984 anti-Sikh carnage in Delhi. Her most recent book is Black November, Writings on the Anti-Sikh Massacre of 1984 and its Aftermath. So I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Ishmeet Chaudhry to address us today on feminism. Is it anti-men? Great. Ishmeet ji, please.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Pothohar Association, for getting me here to do this lecture. Basically, I hope it doesn't turn out into just a lecture, and I know there is a Q&A, so we would be discussing this, but um, I would like to justify my choice of this topic, like, why is there a need to talk about it? Because we've seen feminism come a long way now, and there are several movements, where the women issues have been spoken about. But there are also certain stereotypes, which have simultaneously come up with the question of feminism itself. And one of the major stereotypes which we combat today is, when it's a question of men. So a lot of men, they feel a bit antagonized or offended the moment the word feminism comes in, or if we go to a bookstore and we see a book which has in the title, if there is the word feminism there, or feminist reading, or seem like a feminist or something like that, men would suddenly ignore that book and move forward. And so the very idea that feminism is a thing which is about women, for women, by women, everything centered around women, and they are beating around the car, they are beating around the whole idea of men, and they're poisoning families against men, is what's is a very typical stereotype which has come up, and it also drives men to participate in feminism as a movement. So one thing which we need to do today, I mean, the attempt of this talk would be actually to break that stereotype, and talk about that, how feminism is actually not anti-men. um, I'm sorry I've answered the question which I'm raising right in the beginning, but I think we need to look at this movement very, very positively and with a very open mind. I have a small PowerPoint to share, which I will share, and then I'll begin talking formally about it. Um, so I'll just do that. All right. So the first question that we take up today is like, why feminism? And what does actually feminism offer, or what does it actually do, and what it doesn't do? So one thing we have to be very, very clear about feminism is that yes, feminism is something which aims towards a change in society. A complete overhauling change may not be possible overnight, but with small steps taken, with time, it is possible. We can also see a lot of change which has already happened, right? Because we as women, today I am a woman, I'm speaking, to so many men and women and everybody around the world, right? I also teach. So it's not that I am not an empowered woman. I'm actually an empowered woman. But my empowerment has been possible with this movement, which has slowly and steadily taken shape, and it has kept moving on. I had a working mother, and I never had an idea of that, I had a choice that I wouldn't work. And my mother becomes the first feminist in my life, right? And I look at her, who paved way for all of us to move out of home. She broke the ice. She moved out of home. She worked for the family, and we all followed her footsteps. And therefore, the very idea, if we think feminism is just a proclamation, that proclamation is directed towards a change. And what kind of a change are we looking at? So we're looking at a change which will bring equality of women, men, and also other genders. So if we actually, think that there are only two genders, male and female, and there are no other genders, then we are also mistaken, because there are other genders. I may be a female, but I may feel like a man, you know, from within, and a man may feel like a woman from within, and there are people born with the two sexes, right? And there are other genders. Unfortunately, as a society, we tend to ignore them. But again, gradually, with their movements also, they're coming to forefront. And India recently had, Article 377, which was passed, for legal marriage of, the gays and the lesbians. So that's where we look at how change is happening. But this behind this change, there is years and years and years of movement, small steps taken every year. So what does feminism do, right? What is it about? Yes, feminism is about women. It is for women. But is it only by women? And that's where we make a mistake, because we think that, it's women talking about women, and it's women talking for women, and it's women everywhere. So what happens is, like, if it is so, then women talk to women, they talk about women, you know, and it closes there, because then change is not possible, because women know that there are problems which they face. They know that they are in a crisis, but who can address that crisis? Are women alone sufficient to address that crisis? So we need to understand that, it's not by women alone. There are men who are feminists too. And see, if we need to just imagine that if there is a world which is only full of women, how is it going to be? And if there's a world which is only full of men, how is it going to be? So, isolation is practically not possible. We have to be together, and we have to live, with this variety of different kind of people, and also different kind of living beings around us, different kinds of species, and we have to be together. So in that being together, if we try to think that women are going to talk in their isolated groups and it's just over there, it's not. Therefore, feminism is about women. It is for women, but it's also for men, and we'll talk about it in some time to come. And it is also spoken about by men. What do they talk? When feminists get together, what do they talk? They talk about equality. Equality between two sexes. It's definitely the male and the female, and also about the other genders, right? um, Patriarchy, as such, has exerted a lot of power, and that power is based on the very idea that man is born as a man, therefore man is born with a lot of privileges. And when a female is born, she is not entitled to those privileges, right? So patriarchy in a way has set up a hierarchy where man is not superior to woman, but man is considered to be superior to woman. And there has been an imbalance in the society for a lot of years, for centuries together. And feminism is about women recognizing that there is this imbalance. Therefore, we need to come together to balance it. Therefore, we need to come together to question that imbalance and also to propose solutions for that imbalance so that equality can prevail. Right? We're also going to look at, how this equality is also a little bit insufficient in its own concept, because there has to be more than equality. And more than equality is the equal rights, so it's about giving equal opportunities, equal rights to people, irrespective of sex, irrespective of gender, or irrespective of any other dividing factor. So, it's just like giving equity to people. There can equality is required in terms of equal opportunities. But since, body wise, males and females are different, but the only difference between males and females is that men cannot reproduce. There is no other difference between males and females except one, that men cannot reproduce. In that sense, because woman body reproduces, she cannot be defined just by her body. There is much more that needs to be defined, but she needs to be understood. Her body needs to be understood. A larger failure of societies has been this, that they have failed to understand the need of the female body. Female body is either seen as a sex object, or it is seen, with a lot of empathy or sympathy. Oh, she's menstruating, so she's in pain, or maybe she's in childbirth, so she's in pain, so she's seen with a lot of empathy. But understanding around her body and creating a comfortable space, for her, whether in professional circles or within families, is something which has not happened, which has been a failure of larger institutions across the world, not just in India, but across the world. So feminism is actually not about power. Feminism is also not about, okay, put men indoors and bring all women outdoors. No, it's not about that. If we do that, then it is matriarchy. And matriarchy is also about power, where women assert their power. So if you replace patriarchy with matriarchy, nothing changes. But the feminist question is about empowering women, and it's also not about making woman superior to man, right? So there's a disclaimer here. It's also not about making woman superior to man. It's about being equal, giving respect to each other equally, right? So it's not, it's about bringing down that pyramid of hierarchy, which has been created on the notion that because somebody is born as a man, therefore he is superior to the woman. So, we need to understand that the opposite of patriarchy is not feminism. Opposite of patriarchy is matriarchy, because matriarchy is about woman's power. So if there is matriarchy, the man would be subservient. We are not talking about subservience of man. Right. So therefore, the opposite of patriarchy is not feminism. Rather, feminism is a solution or an alternative to patriarchy. We also need to understand what patriarchy has done to men itself. Right. So if patriarchy has largely neglected women, marginalized women, put women in corner, exploited women, at the same time, it has put in a lot of restrictions on men, and right from the point of disposition. How do we need to look? So men cannot have long hair, men cannot wear nail paints, They cannot have many colors in their life, so they can't wear, for example, the pink color, right? So pink is associated to women, yellow is associated to men, right? And there is so much of restriction. More than that, what patriarchy did to men was that it gave them the burden of the family, not the choice of working for the family, but a burden of family. So even if a man is not capable enough of looking after or bringing up a family, or even if a man chooses not to work outside and would want to be a house husband, would want to be at home and look after the house, he hasn't got a choice. A man is judged through his status. A man is judged through what he does, right? When men work, they work for the family. But when women work, the women work, for themselves. That's the notion which patriarchy has created, right? And what it has done to men is it has imposed a lot of restrictions on men itself. It has limited the choice that men would have. So if we think that patriarchy has been destructive towards women alone, I think we are making a mistake. We need to understand that feminism would actually create a balance where it will also give a lot of choices to men. So how can it be anti-men, right? For women, so individually, patriarchy is not, individually, feminism is not against individual men at all. It is against that power exerted by a whole system of patriarchy. If we look at, the marginalization of the woman that patriarchy in itself has done, one very important space where patriarchy operates is family. Uh, I would like to clear right in the beginning over here that I am not taking up the idea from Western feminism where family is rejected. There are many feminisms, and when we say that the experience of a woman is universal, it's the same everywhere, we make a mistake because there are other agencies that work on various experiences of a woman. The experience of a upper caste woman will be very different from a lower caste woman. The experience, and I'm talking of experience of exploitation, and the experience of exploitation of a native tribal woman would be very different from maybe an Aboriginal woman. Even the white woman faces exploitation, but all these experiences are different. So if we tend to say that the experience of suffering is universal, we are somewhere ignoring the fact that there are lots of things which come into along with patriarchy. They add on to exploitation of women, and therefore this experience varies from person to person, from woman to woman. And when I talk of family structure, right, I do not come with the premise of rejecting family, because particularly within Asia, we are a society which is oriented towards family. We still do not have a choice to stay single or to reject family. And if we do that, our societies are still not prepared to receive us. Societies are still not prepared to receive working women. What talk about single women? And the other opinion that I would like to bring in here is that you can challenge um, patriarchy where it is functional. So you cannot challenge anything from outside the domains of it. I can't be talking of my society if I don't even stay there, right? So if I have to challenge patriarchy, I have to be within that space where patriarchy is operational. So one has to challenge patriarchy from within the family, and it's difficult. It's a everyday struggle. So within the family, when a son is born, he is born with the privilege of being a boy right at the time of birth. But for a girl, she's born with many tags, you know. So she's not welcomed. So the very first thing that we do to boys is we give them a confidence, on a silver plate. Because they're boys, so the first confidence that they get is, yes, we are boys. The first confidence that a girl gets is like, she never gets a confidence. She is like, it's like she is not wanted. She's not welcome. First, she has to make herself welcome. First, she has to prove her existence, right? And then she has to become, first a woman, because the society is going to make her a woman. She's not supposed to shout. She's not supposed to speak loudly. She's not supposed to call bad names. She's not supposed to spread her legs in her own drawing room and sit. Whereas if boys of the same age are sitting with different postures, they are welcome. There is no restriction onto them. They can shout. Even if you look at the games children play, when girls play, something like house, they are like mimicking families, but when the boys play the outdoor games, they play cricket or football or hockey or anything, the outdoor spaces games, then they can shout as they wish to, as loudly as possible. But the moment a girl shouts, she is asked not to. So she's made to become a woman, right? So we give her all these feminine, attributes. Okay, you got to be like that. Or if it's a brother and a sister, we just had Rakhi. So the sister is supposed to tie the Rakhi to the brother, right? And brother may not even a brother may be even quite a weakling to be never able to support his sister, whenever there is a problem. Patriarchy has done this thing also to men, that men are supposed to be masculine, right? Men are supposed to be people who have built up bodies, and women would be looked as weakling. But there's no difference, right? Women can be equally strong as men are. We cannot take this for granted, that men bodies are stronger and women bodies are not. Women are the weaker sex. Also, the moment the woman is born, the girl is born, language in itself plays its role. So we call her kudi. Kudi is a word in Punjabi, which is derived from kuda. Kuda means garbage, right? So look at this, and now a lot of Punjabi writers are actually not using this word, and they're replacing it with biba, right? They have stopped using puri and they are replacing it with biba. The other idea is, the moment the girl is born, that she is manhoos. Manhoos is inauspicious. She's not good for the family. She's something like an object. She's a bad object, right? And at the same time, she would also be worshipped if there is Kanya Puja. Remember, the puja is for the boys, but the girl would be worshipped. Or on a lot of Women Day functions, women are compared to several goddesses. On 8th of March, every woman becomes Durga or Kali or Sharda or Saraswati. And the irony is, Saraswati is a woman. She's a goddess of Vidya, and so many women are deprived, so many girls are deprived of education itself. So what she misses, on the scale from being manhoos and kuri, right, to, becoming a goddess, is the in-between normality. What she needs to be is to be recognized simply as a girl. That's it. Simply as a girl. Simply as a woman, just like anybody else who's born in the family, right? I'm not saying just like a son who's born in the family, because the moment I say that, the son again becomes superior. So she is to be accepted as she is born, as a girl itself, right? And what she needs is that normality. Language has done a lot of damage. If we look at standardized Punjabi language, and if we look at a lot of abuses, I'm taking the case of Punjabi because we are larger Punjabi population today. Just think in your mind a lot of galis, right? Every gali is centered towards the woman. Even one of the most neutral gali, which I choose to bring to your notice today, is Sala. It is meant for men, but Sala is also wife's brother, right? So every gali is centered around women. Can you see how much effort, how many years would it have taken for people to have functioned on these notions, where language is giving this, privilege of derogating woman, and it is happening in a very unnatural, effortless manner, right? And it's just taken for granted. So what happens to the woman the moment she's born? Instead of becoming ambitious or empowered, she is trained to become a body, an object of display, or a consumeristic product. So would have she would be used to market her body, or a reproductive machine, right? Her job is to give birth to children and just to look after them. That's it, right? um, the moment she's also married, she's at the mercy of her in-laws. And what is our choice of marriage? The girl has to be younger to the boy, and if she's working, she has to earn lesser than the boy, so that the social status of the boy is better than the girl. So that if she's younger in age, the entire family can actually exploit her, look down upon her, and also control her, right? Very recently, Punjab State Commission for Women, they issued a brochure in Punjabi advising married young women not to use mobile phones. The reason for this is that there were a lot of divorce cases. And I'm talking of a legal aspect of it, so it's not just an experience, but it is like documented officially, right? And then this Punjab State Commission for Women, the director was a woman, and she endorsed the idea that for 1 year newly wedded brides should not use mobile phones because they are in touch with their family, and the intervention by the family does not allow these girls to settle in the houses they get married to. The problem is that earlier, when girls were married, they were left at the mercy of the in-laws. Today, if they have a support system that makes the in-laws uncomfortable and they're answerable to people, therefore, they came up with the idea that these girls should not use mobile phones. The second case is a 1984 Delhi High Court case where a woman said that she was not being given fundamental rights which are listed in the Constitution of India, when she comes back to the family after work. The Supreme Court judge said that it was not applicable. So the fundamental rights were not applicable in the family because it is like letting a bull into a china shop, right? And he says fundamental rights stop at the door of the family. Because if everybody starts exercising their freedom, then the family as a system would collapse. Families will have to pay for the work that women do indoors, and it's going to be a mess. So when we are talking of systemic marginalization of women, it's not just family as a setup, but it's also the legislature, which is on endorsing, this whole marginalization of women. Um, in professional spaces again, in home, we also see that there is a neat gender divide. So women will do the cooking, they will do the washing, they will do tailoring, they will do housekeeping, and men will work. Men will bring money home, right? And remember, like I said just now, that when woman works, the it is considered that woman works for herself. She has a choice whether to work or not to work. But when man works for the family, right? So one difference is there. The other is women in the professional spaces are also highly othered, highly oppressed. One of the major operations is visible in when it comes to giving them promotions. So a lot of fields have opened up for women. Women have successfully entered those fields with merit, because women don't have a reservation, so they've entered it with merit. Now the fields have opened up, but the fields have not welcomed them. So when it comes to promotions, they have to produce equal amount of work as men have. irrespective of the fact that when women get back home, they do a second shift as well. Irrespective of the fact that when the woman goes home, she has to feed the child. She has to cook food for the family. She has to look after the family. She has to organize things. Even if there are house helps, she has to manage them, right? So, not looking at her double shift, she has to produce an equal amount of work, which many a times she's not able to do, and therefore there is a loss in career. With childbirth, there is a gap if she takes a break, and then she has to once again give up to her career. On the other hand, when men come to work, they are paid better than actually women. So if we look at, there's a small chart which I've given up. I'm not going to read it out, but if we look at when men do tailoring, they are paid. When women do tailoring, they are underpaid. When men cook, they become chefs. When they are paid well, but when women do cook, then they are unprofessional and they're also underpaid. Similarly, so in housekeeping, but in hospitality industry, we need to also see that when women work and they are paid more, they also become exhibitionists of their bodies. Their bodies are also at display, because for example, look at the air hostesses. Only government airlines allow women, elderly women as air hostesses, but all the private airlines employ young girls, right? And then when we look at some other areas like sex work, bartenders, domestic help, they mostly work under compulsion. They're women working under compulsion. They get low pays. They do not have a regular work. They don't have profit, and they are thoroughly exploitative. More so, teaching as a profession has now become a woman's profession, in the name that women will take care of children. They are better caregivers. And that is where the women are underpaid and they are exploited. But when men work, they choose to work either in coaching centers where they're paid highly, or in higher education. Men do not choose to work in schools in comparison to the number of women who choose to work in school. And men also sometimes complain that women accept these salaries, the lower grade salaries that they get. Therefore men cannot work in these spaces, and they are exploited. Societies are still not prepared for working women. There's a lack of infrastructure. Women bodies are not understood. There's a there for example, maternity benefits are like leave are symbolic. And why they are symbolic? Because before a woman gives birth to the child, the leave starts at the point of the birth, right? There are 9 months where she has her own experiences, right? There's no consideration towards those 9 months, right? There's no special leave or there's no special space for women. Offices still haven't had healthcare centers for women, within their offices, but they have child care centers, you know. So see, the concentration is again on the child. It is not on women. Menstruation is a completely neglected area. There's a huge taboo around menstruation. In my car, I often have a packet of sanitary pad which keeps lying here and there. Every time, I'm not even talking of men, every time a woman sits there, she picks it up and she puts it in the dashboard so that it is not visible. Right? You go to buy a sanitary pad, the shopkeeper wraps it in a black packet or a newspaper and gives it to you, as if I don't know what blasphemy are you buying from him. And that's where it's a completely neglected area. Women have, but there are taboos around it. Of lately in Gujarat, we had a college where each and every girl was checked if she was menstruating or not, because if she was menstruating, she was not allowed to attend classes and not allowed to even go in for puja, right? So and she was actually, each and every girl was checked. Just right now in 2020, in the month of February, this is an experience that happens in Gujarat. Lack of forum within workspaces to address women-centric issues, right? body shaming and character slamming. The moment, it's about promotions or anything, or if a woman is, ambitious and she displays her ambition, you know, array, she's too fat, oh, she looks malnourished, she doesn't eat anything. So this body shaming and character slamming, she goes in with men, she does this, she does that. Insensitive jokes about marital relationships. Wife is always the bad one, man is the oppressed one, and it's actually totally opposite, right? Or something like Joru ka gulam and things of that type, and those kinds, which actually humiliate women. And there is no mental as well as physical space to motivate or nourish woman's ambition. If man is ambitious, there is space for him, there is ample opportunity for him, but for women there is no. So feminism definitely is not anti-men. Um, it is against systemic exploitation that has resulted as a power, which is exercised by men collectively, who consider that being men is being superior by birth, right? So this is actually an exercise of power by patriarchy. So patriarchy is a structure that leads both men and women to exploit women. And I'm saying both men and women because women can be patriarchal and men can be feminists. So we do see, women sometimes are violent on women, right? Because they are conditioned by patriarchy. They are not exposed enough to think about the woman question. So sometimes, women are very, very empathetic towards women. Now, for example, many working women, they want to accommodate their daughter-in-laws or even their daughters, and they say, okay, this is what we went through. I mean, this is not what you should go through, right? At the same time, many women think that, okay, this happened to me. Why shouldn't the same experience happen to her? So I'm not going to help her because I don't have an experience of anybody helping me. And that is where we see a patriarchal conditioning, or a mother of a son, looking down upon a daughter-in-law, or maybe even a daughter for that matter, right? So women can be patriarchal, but at the same time, men can be feminists, right? And we do have those men all around us. And if those men were not there, perhaps, women would not have been able to even assert their voices, because then nobody would have understood them. So that means there have been men who have understood what the women are saying. I bring to this forum, one of the earliest feminist man I personally was introduced to, and he is Guru Nanak Sahib. So Guru Nanak Sahib, when the at the time, when Guru Nanak Sahib comes, it's a culmination of both Bhakti and Sufi movement. And so already before him, Kabir has also, given a woman question. And Guru Nanak Sahib actually is saying that, we cannot denounce a woman, because with the woman we have all relationships. And more than relationships, the future generations come with her. Except for Ikyunkar, Ikyunkar is the Sikh name for God. So except for Ikyunkar, nobody is born outside a woman. She is also the giver of birth to the kings. So we cannot call her bad. And that this is a very, very assertive statement that comes from Guru Nanak Sahib. Guru Nanak Sahib also mentions menstruation. Very few scriptures have mentioned menstruation. And Guru Nanak Sahib says, as a woman has her periods month after month, she is not impure. Then who is impure? He says that mouth, be it of a male or a female, he uses the word purk. Purk is purush. Purush is insan. Insan is human, right? So he's saying that person whose mouth is full of lies, is full of falsehood, who's imbued in life, is the one who is impure. And these two things he mentions in uh, Asakivar. Guru Nanak Sahib also, while having conversation with Babur and later on writing about, several attacks which happen in India, he talks about how several women are assaulted by men. So when the Mughal army comes in, it's not just that Hindustani or Patiani or Thakurani are being assaulted, even Turkanis are being assaulted. So when it's a question of woman, and the body being assaulted, the woman is just a woman. So any other, identity of hers, she belonging to us, our community, our religion, our caste, our clan diminishes. That time only body is prevalent. Many years later, Sadat Hasan Manto wrote a story where he talks about how, men from his own community rescue women who were left behind in Pakistan during partition. And he talks about how a father describes a very beautiful woman and he says, if you find her, please get her to me. And when the woman is brought, she has actually been assaulted by the men who are helping, by her own men. So when it comes to the woman's question, it's not other communities or other people, the woman is just reduced to a body or being a woman. There are other feminist men. I have just penned down a couple of them, but there are many more. Um, by Veer Singh, he wrote a seminal novel called Sundari. On one hand, where Sikh history has actually neglected the role of women quite a lot. Veer Singh is a man who writes Sundari and he talks about the contribution of women in the warfare, right? Bhagat Puran Singh, highly inspired by his mother, works for education of women and welfare of them because he did open a school for women. And later on, he passes on his entire lineage to Dr. Inderjeet Kaur, who is also a woman. I just mentioned Sadat Hasan Manto. Similarly, so Manto also talked about ethicality in, amongst sex workers. So he talks about ethicality amongst prostitutes, and he talks about ethicality amongst, people, amongst women who are considered to be of quote unquote non-respectful professions, and he's trying to bring them on a similar pedestal like other respectful women. Kefi Azmi, actually during freedom movement, Kefi Azmi is giving another voice to women, and he is wooing her to come forward, and he says, "Tujhe saath chalna hoga," right? He is asking her to stand shoulder to shoulder with man and come forward, and whatever has gone by, forget it, and start a new role, by shouldering men in the freedom movement. So Sahir Ludhianvi again talks about the plight of a woman, and he is a man who's recognizing this. Interesting fact is that he's a man who's recognizing this. औरत ने जन्म दिया मर्दों को, मर्दों ने उसे बाजार दिया, जब दिल चाहा मसला कुचला, जब दिल चाहा दुत्कार दिया. So he says, man gave birth to women and they placed her in the market, trampled upon her when they saw fit, and crushed her when they saw fit. So and see, it's not a woman who's saying that; it's a man who's saying that. Finally, I conclude, and I would like to conclude on a positive note, saying that feminism is all inclusive. It's not only about women, for women, and by women. Anybody who is being exploited due to patriarchy, feminism includes them. Feminism is a word that discards power. The key word for feminism is empowerment. It's time for men to join women's movement in a mass scale to bring an effective change in society, which is the goal of feminism. We need to say a no to gendering, and we need to say a yes to equality. Many walks of societies have opened up for women, but they are yet to welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I'm now just going to ask Pushpinderjeet if you want to unmute and
thank you.
Host the question and answers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Bobby, and also to Dr. Ishmeet for bringing in such a wonderful insight into feminism. And I would like to also agree with her that it's all about equal rights and equal opportunities for women, which in turn actually shares the equal burden and equal life with men. Yeah. So, so once they are on equal platform to be able to, it doesn't mean, as you were saying, that women would get their own way. It's about being enough empowered to be able to negotiate their own space, their own ambition, their own life. I'm also very proud to be belonging to the Pothohar Association, because they too have been over the years not only had represented a lot of women on their committee, but had in the past 2 women president, and very progressive and inspiring women who were handling, one was Jasveer Anand, handling politics. She's a counselor, housewife, and she's also a very successful entrepreneur. And her contribution to Pothohar Biradari Association has been tremendous. And then we mustn't forget, before her, there was another Jasveer Vora, who really worked hard in charity and was truly took this Pothohar Association forward. So I'm really, really very proud of who we are and the kind of work we do and kind of equality that we offer women within our society. Ishmeet, you are earlier touched on the proverbs we use or the galis we have. Even in Western society, we have things like behind every man stands, behind every successful man. So for us, we need to change this to beside every successful man stands a woman. We are always beside. And to promote gender equality, I totally agree with you that we need to ask men to step up beside women to promote and support gender equality. And the other thing that you also mentioned in your talk was these demeaning sexist jokes. I think we should, at the dinner table, at any parties, anywhere where there are sexist jokes, we need to challenge it. We need to challenge it on our WhatsApp groups because they are perpetrating really sexist and racist jokes, I'm afraid. So it does mean that we have a lot of work to do. And it needs not only men, women, but of a person of any sex, as you said, needs to come together to do this. And I would like to just ask you one question before we go to other people. How do you think, as individuals, what kind of space and how can we create it to encourage other women and men to move forward? Ishmeet, I would like you to perhaps throw some light on it?
I think the beginning has to be by exposing ourselves, one, to the difference which is visible, and then to address that difference, and perhaps at every individual, at every individual's end, nurturing, is a very important. Nurturing is a very important thing. We need to nurture our children, uh, because they are the ones who will also be living in a similar world. So a world which we have lived, it needs to be slightly better, for those children. And so the children become participants, in making it better. So the boys need to be nurtured in a way where they see any oppression happening to women and they say, no, I mean, stop it here. And women also need to refuse to take it. If I'm a girl and if my mother is not giving me an egg to eat, I need to demand 2 eggs, not one, right? 2 eggs, right? I need to even snatch away the egg which my brother has, right? And eat his as well, right? Just to let him feel that if you don't get something, how it feels. So it begins at home, one. Two is, I see, I also feel that you can still manage to bring change sometimes at home. It's not a general statement because every house has a different setting. Sometimes at home, but it's very difficult to bring change in professional spaces. The
Yes.
symbolism that works in professional spaces is very hard to counter. So if there is, for example, conference, they will forcibly put one woman in it just to show the woman's face that, okay, we are gender inclusive, we have brought one woman. If a girl is expecting, so she would be asked, can you do this duty? I mean, would you be okay? Why should such a question be asked in professional spaces? And it's not out of sympathy. We don't need sympathy. What we need is consideration, right? And don't give it to us as if it's not our right. I mean, we don't want to be begging for these things. It should automatically happen that, you also know when would be expecting woman be uncomfortable. You're giving her a wrong duty, therefore you're asking her this question. So I think, I don't know, like, I don't have an answer to how do we counter, these tendencies within professional spaces. Speaking is just not enough because we don't know how to set these examples of othering for, men in professional spaces, because there are lots of things at stake also within these spaces.
Thank you. I think that's a good answer. Recognizing the problem, what it is within ourselves and within the society, is how we can move forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have a question from Diditi Mitra.
Hi, thank you so much, Winderji, for taking my question. Hello, Ishmeet, how are you?
Hi, Diditi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. So this question that came to me while listening to you is this idea of what is the family itself, right? And how this family actually supports patriarchy. So if we're talking about, this heteronormative idea of man-woman, or this dual leadership family, and how this fits into patriarchy, and I think it's important to understand. So what are your thoughts on that? That how do we understand it? How do we counter it in the popular spaces that we are in?
See, I talk about family from a very, southeastern position. I mean, where I am placed, right? So, because in Indian families, right, there is no space for accommodation of other sexes. I also base my this observation on many autobiographies which I have read by the transgender women. And one I would talk about here is, Revati's autobiography, um, where she talks about how her family refuses to accept her, and it's very difficult for her to, be accepted with the identity of being a hijra, right? So when I talk about family, I'm definitely talking in this heteronormative spaces, where it's the male who is the head of the family, quote unquote. I don't believe that, right? Who is supposedly the head of the family. It's the father-in-law dominating, or the eldest male member dominating. And so when I talk of this, and I also come from a premise where a lot of young women come to me for counseling, my own students, and they don't want to get married. And then there's a lot of pressure on them where they are forced into marriages, and they hardly have a choice to not to get married. Nothing works for them. Societies don't support them. Families don't support them. They don't have a strong support system where they can, choose not to get married. And those who do, it's after a huge, huge revolt. So, my premise of family actually comes in a very, very isolated setup. I do understand your question in that sense, but I do feel that, I've been of lately also working on Indian family systems and the menstruation taboos, where I do see that patriarchy is quite involved in creating some of these taboos. So I do not have an experience of, families of other countries. So that's where, I come from a very, very isolated example that I'm taking here.
Right. If I could just follow up on, and I think you raised some interesting questions. I'm located in the States, and some of the things that you say about yes, there are contextual differences, of course, but there is a certain dominance of heterosexuality, even though, gay marriage is legal in the States, right? But that is the legal level. On the cultural level, there is a dominance of man, woman, and what is the expectation of family, right? So there are those commonalities that do exist. And I suppose, so there are those commonalities, absolutely.
No, see, the differences that I locate, is also in the systems, in the sense that, okay, if somebody plans to move out of family and support oneself, there's a support system from the system itself. There's so many things with which you can work. You can go out and work, you can earn money. But in the South Asian system, you don't have those options, right? So you can't be on your own self. You don't have a choice of working at a restaurant or at a, petrol pump or anything. Nobody will give you a job, if you are a transgender or anybody, right? So it's a very difficult thing for culturally, I mean, it's like doubly, trebly, like, 3-4 times othered, right? There is no space for people over here, and it's going to take, again, like, legally, yes, we also have a law now, but I mean, is there really a cultural space for acceptance of other genders?
Right. No, I understand. I know nothing about South Asia. My work is totally in the States, so I will not comment on, a society of which I don't have any scholarly knowledge of. But I was just trying to point out that there are some commonalities of the basic principles of patriarchy, while their manifestations perhaps varied. So I suppose, how do we talk about it in the public space and push people to think a little bit differently? There's something particular that you had said that made me think of that question, and I wish I'd remember the slide where it came out of. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Diditi, for being here. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from Inder Upalji. Anji, please ask your question. Oh, just unmute and ask your question. If you click on unmute and ask the question, please. Inderji, please unmute and ask the question. Click on unmute. I, I'm Indraji, if you can please click on unmute before speaking. Yes.
Do you want me to speak
Yes,
now?
yes, go ahead now, please.
Yes, yes. What I'm saying is this, your lecture is very good. You have given this explanation of feminism also. Somehow I think I wouldn't be frank if I didn't express some disappointment at the lack of your appreciation of current situation. Things have moved quite a lot. It appears that you have lectures written down about 100 years ago. Now things have moved quite a lot. I come from the village where there's no easy communication, even now. In my village, things have moved quite a lot. Women, girls do not listen to men too much as they were used to be. So under these circumstances, I think that we must appreciate the efforts which are being made to promote the rights of women everywhere in the world. Particularly, you have very nicely quoted from our Granth Sahib Ji, Guru Nanak Ji, saying that we treat women equally. So my question to you is this: don't you think your thoughts are a little bit outdated and you haven't given full appreciation to what is happening now?
I don't agree with you, sir, because primarily because we think that women, there's a lot of change that has already happened. But the change has actually not happened because the form of dominance has changed slightly, but it still exists. Um, Women are rather overburdened now because on one hand, if they have moved out of home, they are working. Once they come back in, they are again burdened with the homework, the work, the household chores that they have to do, irrespective of the fact that some privileged women will have a lot of help. Secondly, a lot of women want to move out and work. They still don't have the opportunity, right? They're still under the pressures of the family, right? The family does not allow them to work. And even if, they seem to be overtly very happy. And I had my own friends. I mean, this is 2020, right? You talk about 100 years back. I have my own friends who tell me that, my husband says that I'll provide you everything. You don't need to do anything and you're free to do anything, but not work. And the justification that these men give them is that the children get spoiled, you have to look after children. And it's 2020, it's not 100 years old thing, right? Privileged families, happy, high middle class families, and their husbands are telling them that they can't work. They're still, they're still dominating them. The women have no choice to go out and work, and they're capable. It's not that they're not capable. And the gender role, the gender divide is still very much functional. So I don't know, like, if it is not prevalent. I think we are refusing to accept that it still happens. And I quoted an example of systemic othering, checking of these girls in Gujarat, whether they were menstruating or not. What is that? That never happened 100 years back. I'm not talking of a case 100 years back. I'm talking of February 2020, right? The whole college, girls' college, is being, checked for that. They were literally asked to open up their panties and show if they were menstruating or not, right? So this is not a 100-year-old kind of a thing. It is prevalent even today, you know. Despite education, despite girls moving out, and even now the education being given to girls is elementary. Ultimately, to shadi karna hai na. So it's elementary. Okay, you do graduation, so and after that you get married. You stay, you live a happy life. You attend kitty parties, you enjoy yourself, and you do that. And more than that, during lockdown, and I'm speaking from experience, but there is a data to this also. during lockdown, so many girls, have undergone domestic violence. There's a full data to it that how many phone calls was received by the government, call centers, which were specially made for, to help women. And women have undergone a lot of depression, particularly at this point during the lockdown. The whole family was inside, their household work increased manyfold, and the space that they used to have when everybody went out to work or children went to school was missing, and they actually went into depressions. And post COVID, we are going to see a lot of such cases coming up, a lot of hormonal balances, so it's not 100 years back, it's now, right? A lot of people are talking of men working at home, even now during lockdown, when men are participating. I'm not refusing that men are not participating, men are participating, but men choose to do what they want to do, women do what is required to do. So it's again not 100 years, it's like it's right now in the present that we are going through.
Well, thank you very much indeed, but I don't share your optimism very much.
That's all right, sir. That's all right.
We're very proud of you. Thank you very much for carrying out so much research. Thank you.
Okay. Pushpinder, do you want to come?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that. Of course, things have moved a little, but it's not enough. And the sad thing is, if women actually toes the family line, then that's fine. She's supported, she's given any chances. But if she goes against the wishes of the family, should she want to step out, then that support is withdrawn totally. And she has a high price to pay, emotionally as well as financially. I think it is just so hard for women, even in this age, even here in UK, that if they want to step outside the family norms, expectations, is a very high price to pay. And this is now, we don't even recognize the deviance or of any kind. We don't tolerate it at all. And it's very difficult for us to accept any issues about homosexuality, for example. We find a high price to pay, I would say.
Well, women have been very powerful everywhere. Look what happened Indira Gandhi, how strong she was.
No, I'm sorry, that Indira Gandhi did come in, so did Margaret Thatcher, but this was at the this was acting like a man. If anybody did less laws to facilitate women, it was Indira Gandhi and it was Margaret Thatcher. So I'm sorry, women do come into power, but that at the rules of the men.
Yeah, Margaret Thatcher, Bandara Naik, Ceylon, she was a very powerful minister. Golda Meir, Israel.
No, exception. Ordinary women. You can also say we are treated like goddess, and all these quotes we have from Guru Granth Sahib. Of course, these are there, but in practice, I'm talking about for ordinary women, life is hard. Life is difficult.
Okay, I think we're coming towards the end of our time, really. And if you just want to, Pushpinder, if you just want to make a final comment and a thanks and a vote of thanks, maybe.
I thoroughly enjoyed this this talk, and thank you so much for accepting to come on this platform to talk about so candidly about the very difficult subjects that our community actually doesn't talk about. So I am really proud of Ishmeet. This is amazing talk. And thank you so much for Pothohar Association to provide this platform. And thank you for all those who attended. Thank you.